On Earth, a new ice age is beginning when a mysterious portal appears in its orbit, leading to another solar system, where there is a habitable planet called Rhea. Through the use of probes, scientists discover that one Earth year equals 18 years on Rhea. Thousands of humans, fleeing cold and hunger, travel through the gate to the new planet, but most people are still forced to remain on Earth. When Earth's resources are completely exhausted, a mass migration begins, which the new inhabitants of Rhea do not welcome. Bran Marshall is one of the refugees trying to sneak onto Rhea. However, not far from the destination, the ship he's on is attacked, and he, along with his AI named Edison, is forced to survive in a rescue capsule. When there are only a few hours of oxygen left, Edison detects a nearby spacecraft called the Nissa, which does not respond to hails. Edison suggests flying over to it, but that will require a sharp acceleration that is extremely harmful to the human body. Fortunately, Bran has a drug that helps with high G-forces, but it needs to be injected straight into the heart. He realizes he has no other choice and starts the countdown. The capsule docks with the ship. Reeling from the extreme G-load, Bran blacks out and recalls his last days on Earth when he and his daughter Riley buried his wife and her mother not far from her father's home. After the funeral ceremony, they return to the grandfather's house, where he's seeing off a neighbor who's complaining about hunger since nothing grows on their farm anymore. The old man feels sorry for the woman and gives her a box of canned food. When she leaves, Bran expresses his disapproval of the old man's actions because it's dangerous to show anyone your supplies these days, and he suggests they flee before the neighbor has a chance to share what she's learned, but the old man refuses. In the present, Bran moves into the ship and activates Edison. They walk through the nearest compartments, and soon Bran finds the bodies of dead people. He genuinely wonders what they could have possibly been fighting over out here in space. Soon he sees a wall covered with photographs of the crew and remembers that Rians consider themselves far better and more advanced than humans. Before long, Bran discovers supplies of food and medicine, but then Edison warns him of rising radiation, and Bran sees a woman aiming a beam pistol at him. She accuses him of killing the crew, though Bran explains that he has only just docked. Outraged, the woman insists that Rians deliver supplies to Earthlings, and this is how they repay them. Bran tells her to kill him if she's so certain of his guilt, but in the same breath he shoves the woman and manages to escape before she fires. However, the woman knows the ship better and ambushes him in another corridor, knocking him down. Bran shoves her away again and flees. He manages to reach the med bay and lock the doors right in front of his pursuer's face. He takes some medicine and notices a pod containing the body of one of the crew members. Nearby is a screen displaying the data of the entire crew. Bran locates information about the hostile woman, but still can't figure out what happened on the ship. Then he sees the woman breaking into the medbay, hides, and waits for her to enter. He knocks her out with a blow to the head and then leaves. She quickly comes to and activates the fire suppression system, which begins removing oxygen from the compartments. Bran finds an oxygen pipe and breathes right next to it when his pursuer appears again wearing a mask. The two engage in a fight, and though Bran is weakened, he once again disables the woman while Edison restores the air supply. Leaving the unconscious Rian on the floor, Bran heads to the bridge to prepare Edison to interface with the ship's AI. However, Edison suddenly reports that the Rians are opposed to artificial intelligence, blaming it for Earth's demise. So there is no AI on the ship at all. And in nearly 600 years of Rian civilization, they haven't evolved much beyond humans. Nevertheless, Edison enters the ship's control system. Suddenly, the woman, now recovered, begins pounding on the door, forbidding him to press the glowing area on the control screen. But Bran doesn't intend to listen to her. He doesn't understand why Rians get to decide who is allowed to live on Rhea and who is not, especially since they all came from Earth originally. Yet for some reason, Rians feel justified in shooting down ships and denying their own kind access to the shared planet. Wanting to spite the Rian, he presses the button. An alarm sounds, and the woman sinks to her knees in disbelief that he actually did it. Edison voices his disapproval of Bran's impulsive action, warning that the outcome will be disastrous. The very next moment, increased gravity slams Bran to the floor. We flash back again to the past. Realizing he can't convince his father-in-law to leave, Bran goes out to the field and digs up a box containing the money he earned and saves so his daughter could leave for Rhea. Riley refuses to abandon her relatives, but Bran and her grandfather see themselves as too old to start a new life. Suddenly, an alarm sounds. Bran orders the girl to hide in a container while he grabs a weapon. In the present, Bran comes to while Edison explains that the ship's systems were deliberately disabled. Someone destroyed the navigation so the ship lost control, and after Bran turned the engines back on, it became impossible to shut them down. Once they reach the beacon, the pull of a planetoid will alter their trajectory, and they'll inevitably collide with the refugee station, killing hundreds more people. Bran realizes he can't handle this problem alone, but as soon as he opens the door, the woman lunges at him. He forces her into a chair and accuses her and the Rians of staging this accident to kill refugees. She believes it was Earthlings who caused it. She explains that the Nisa was carrying provisions to the Earthlings station, but during an inspection, an undeclared cargo was discovered on board. While that was being investigated, she went to sleep. She woke to gunfire. The dying captain told her he had shut down the systems. She ran to the bridge to find out what had happened, and that's when Bran burst in and ruined everything. Once again, Bran insists he docked only after the incident occurred. He recalls the man in the medbay pod, whom she calls Decker. Maybe he killed the crew before heading to the medbay? The woman's name is Osha. Bran notices a bracelet on her wrist like those worn by criminals. Osha claims she is a killer of Earthlings, and their argument continues until Edison reminds them that if they want to survive, they have to work together. The AI explains that the ship is flying to a cluster of space debris. Bran, unable to restrain himself, mentions that these are the wreckage of Earth ships shot down by Rians, but Edison won't let another argument erupt. Osha will have to go into the engine compartment where there's a gaping breach and disconnect the engines to allow for eventual navigation. At the same time, Bran must turn the necessary lever from inside. Osha leaves, sending a contemptuous gesture in the Earthlings' direction as a parting shot. At this point, Decker regains consciousness and climbs out of the medical pod. Osha is just disconnecting the first engine when Bran warns her that there's a lot of debris ahead and that the breach is quite large. They start working on the second engine when Osha's oxygen runs out. Bran resuscitates her. Later, Edison explains that they'll need to simultaneously take control of the engines and operate in sync. The pair grabs the joysticks. The ship changes course, but they are severely shaken. They complete another maneuver and collapse under the G-forces. They have to get up again, though. It's not over yet. After the third turn, Bran nearly loses consciousness. Osha snaps his dislocated arm back into place, and he passes out from the pain. He's back in the past when their neighbors arrive at his father-in-law's house to take their supplies, the ones the old man revealed. The grandfather demands they leave, but the neighbor can't. His family is starving, and his parents have died. To make them more cooperative, the neighbor orders someone to find Riley. One of the men opens the container where she's hiding. The old man and Bran open fire, killing them. Riley darts out only to see that the neighbor's wife is armed too and shoots in her direction. A wounded Bran kills the woman. Back in the present, Osha notices a photo of Riley and Bran admits he'd lost his daughter. Unexpectedly, Osha says she also lost her family. The real government did not appreciate their attempts to help Earthlings. She doesn't understand the politics, but many Rians don't share the belief that Earthlings are bad and should be kept from coming through the gate. Bran says he didn't want to leave Earth, but he had to. He promised his daughter he would survive. Edison reminds him that to survive, they still need to work. Now Bran must enter the navigation bay and remove the burned-out boards. The problem is, it's minus 40 degrees in there. Bran puts on his suit and Osha laughs at the sight of it, recalling Rhea, where it's always warm. But then again, Earth used to be warm too. Bran steps out into the bitter cold and begins looking for the burned boards. Meanwhile, Decker smashes one of the switches. Osha notices this and goes into the corridor. She's shocked by his actions, especially since he's also from the group of migrants. Decker confesses he was given no choice. The Rians took his children and threatened to kill them if he didn't destroy the station. It's a neat solution. An Earthling kills his own people. But first, he has to kill Osha. While this is happening, Bran finishes his work and asks Osha to let him back on the ship. But Osha is busy fighting for her life. Freezing, Bran tries to escape through another exit, but to squeeze through, he must remove his gear. With his last bit of strength, he opens the grate and collapses into the corridor, where Osha knocks Decker out and rushes to help Bran, placing him in a medical capsule. Edison reports that they succeeded. Once they reboot the system, the ship's controls will be restored. Sometime later, Bran regains consciousness and exits the capsule. Osha tells him everything she learned from Decker. Bran suggests showing this video to the Rians so that the government will have to explain itself. But first, they must finish the job. Meanwhile, Decker comes to again. Edison warns them about a major G-force overload coming, and Bran heads to the cargo bay to get the medication. Osha tackles the control system, which can be revived by disconnecting one of the wires on the console. The trouble is, Edison doesn't know which one, so they'll have to experiment. While Osha does that, Bran finds not only the drug, but also a large bomb. He runs to the bridge, but Decker hits him over the head. Osha is left with two wires, one of which belongs to the life support system, which takes 3 minutes to reboot. This means she'll have to stop breathing during that time. She hesitates, but luck is on her side. Meanwhile, Decker apologizes to Bran, but insists he'll do anything to save his family. Suddenly, the G-forces increase again. Bran is thrown back to the day he found Riley mortally wounded, and the girl, in her final moments, gave him Edison, which she had developed herself. She made him promise he would leave Earth. In the present, Edison gives Osha final instructions and asks her not to die. Bran injects himself with the serum and heads to help Osha, fighting Decker along the way and ultimately defeating him. With the last of his strength, he reaches the bridge in time to give Osha the anti-G-force drug. He remembers the day of Riley's funeral when his father-in-law urged him to fulfill the promise he made to her. Perhaps he really could change something in this world. That was when he activated Edison. In the present, Osha and Bran come to as Edison explains that to regain full control of the ship, they must restart all systems. That means Edison will reset to factory settings. Bran can't accept this, but Edison sees no other option. He has already uploaded Decker's confession video into the system, and after the reboot, it will go public, so everyone will learn of the government's crimes. Maybe then, everything will change. Bran says his goodbyes to Edison and reboots the system. The ship alters course and veers away from the station. With the last of his strength, Decker activates the bomb, which is immediately reported on the bridge. Osha aims the ship at the gate while Bran takes the bomb to the airlock. But when she thinks everything is going according to plan, he confesses that the small airlock won't open. So he'll put on a suit and go out into space with the bomb. Soon, Osha sees an explosion in space. She mourns Bran when suddenly she hears a knocking on the viewport. Bran returns to the ship, and together they gaze at an Earth locked in ice, discussing where to start on the ship's repairs. 9 months later, they finish fine-tuning the system. Almost 15 years have passed on Rhea, and now the two of them are returning there together. As they approach, they receive a hail from Rhea. Earth. The dispatcher is overjoyed to hear from the Nissa, which has become a legend on the planet for managing to change human relations. The film is definitely low budget. The visuals are primitive, the plot is simple, and the dialogue is hardly original. Nevertheless, it's not the worst example of a claustrophobic sci-fi story.